Hello and welcome to After the War. My name is Alistair Stewart, one of the two lead creators behind this tabletop role-playing game of memetic horror. This is a presentation to help your group start your first game. What we're going to do is walk you through the process of character creation, customizing your settlement and starting your first session. You can pause this recording at any time or listen to anything you might have missed. Now, before you get started, make sure that you have a character sheet printed out for each of the players and a copy of the settlement sheets. Be sure to also collect some pens and pencils, as well as a number of six-sided dice. You can bring along some of the other weirder shaped ones if you're worried your six-sided ones will get lonely, but we're pretty much going to be doing the six-sided ones all the way down. Now, let's get started. Each character has a pair of origin traits, war story traits, profession traits, two beliefs, and a name. Once you have your characters, you select and customize your settlement before starting play, and we're going to go through that process together now. Step 1 is your origin. Your origin represents where you came from and how you were raised. The main origins are Terran, Martian, Belter, or Alien, and they break down into a bunch of other communities, which we'll walk you through now. Starting with Terrans, they are the humans who grew up on the ancient and overcrowded planet of Earth. As a Terran, you have knowledge of history, politics, and nature. You may be one of the few people still alive who experienced a rainstorm, walked under open skies, or encountered wildlife. Perhaps you even remember snow. Terrans can be from any of the following communities: the political community, which watches geopolitics; the agricultural community, which is wise in the way of the land; the citizen community with emergency response and peacekeeping duties; the religious community, belonging to one of the planet's countless faiths; or the academic community, studying at a center of learning. Next up, humanity's second home, Mars. Martians are humans who grew up under the domes of Mars. Mars Corp runs everything, from the power-armored military to the terraforming efforts that were transforming the world. Martians can be from any of the following: Minerva Division, working in management and finances; Armada Division, flying with the Martian Navy; Titan Division, fighting while clad in power armor; Cornerstone Division, working in manufacturing and industry; Sculptor Division, reshaping the red planet into a green paradise. Belters are humans from the disparate minor colonies and mining stations in the asteroid belt. They are independent, impoverished, and bold. Belters can be from any of the following: Stewards, also known as Padres, faithful caretakers of the belt; Marshals, also known as Mariscal, voices of law and brokers of peace; Transporters, most commonly from a company called Uraka Ships, bold pilots who carry goods and people throughout the belt for the right price; Wanderers, also known as Vergers, drifters and wanderers who seek a home and sometimes find one; and finally the Resistance, the largest group of which is Bradbury Weeps, revolutionaries resisting Mars Corp oppression and expansion. Now, aliens. This is the fun stuff. The friendly, non-human species who formed the Union and survived the war give you lots of opportunities for very different perspectives and viewpoints on what's going on Polvo. The Permansa are horse-like, stoic guardians who once led galactic civilization. The Fundar are a bird-like species that were traumatized by a biological weapon long before the song ever swept through known space. The Illuvia are super-intelligent, non-corporeal energy beings who possess willing vassals. The Ursa are jovial, bipedal bears who are obsessed with the number 4. And finally, the Mercurio are shape-shifting doppelgangers who are equally obsessed with change. Step 2. Your war story. Your war story represents your most significant experience during the war. The main war stories are Overture, Crescendo, Dissonance, or Silence. Overture speaks to the early days of the war, when the song first emerged to threaten us all. You may have been involved with any of the following incidents, a lot of which are explored in more detail in the game timeline, so if anything here piques your interest, feel free to stop the recording, go take a look at that, and come back. I promise we won't be holding our breath or anything. First off, Feynman's Sentinels, when the song was first detected; First Contact, when scientists were first enslaved by the song; The Prelude, when the crew of the USF Endeavour fought desperately to keep it at bay. Shelter in Place, when new recruits were hidden in the shelter at the centre of the Endeavour when it became apparent all was lost. Bastion's Children, one of the survivors who fled the USF Endeavour. Crescendo speaks to the onslaught of the Great Choir and the destruction of everyone's home. You may have been involved with Personal Apocalypse, uploading the final messages from Earth. The Oort Line, taking a final stand to protect the solar system. The Starlift, the largest evacuation in human history, a final, desperate rescue flotilla. Fire Sale, when corporate executives bought new worlds for humanity. Or Scorched Earth, when the homeworld burned. Dissonance speaks to the Exodus fleet, who fled from dying worlds and unleashed the horror of Tormenta. You may have been involved with The Stolen Plans, smuggling a nanotech weapon from Earth. Recruitment Drive, when volunteers sacrificed their minds for the greater good. The Chase, as part of the Refugee Armada. The Battle of Amboso, turning refugees into weapons. The Hero, transforming a drunk into the most powerful weapon of all. Silence speaks to the fallout and recovery after the war ended, when the survivors began to rebuild. You may have been involved with The Landing, first settlers on Polvo, the first town building the settlement of New Hope, rendered aid when the Permancer offered their help, the Covenant, burying the ultimate weapon, and Echoes, the return of the song. Now, step 3, your profession. Your profession represents what you are doing right now on Polvo. The main professions are builder, scholar, veteran, or leader. Builders are those who endeavour to restore society through construction, planning, and technology. They include wreck runners, also known as wreck dancers, freelance emergency responders who know their way through the boneyards. Engineers, building a better world. Traders, merchants of that better world. Agents, servants of one of the great factions. And salvagers, gathering forgotten and sometimes ancient treasures. Veterans are those who served in a direct military capacity during the War of the Somme, who still stand ready to protect the survivors. They include pilots, skilled in navigation, medics who heal the sick, grunts, foot soldiers once, foot soldiers forever, sentinels, reconnaissance experts, and officers who guide their armies into battle, or once did. Leaders are those who keep the peace and guide the Polvan survivors to a more promising future. They include organizers who guide their communities, imams who act as spiritual advisors, prosperos who act as mystical advisors, storytellers teaching histories and lies and the truth hidden inside both, and diplomats negotiating peace and trade. Finally, scholars are those academics and scientists whose knowledge will be essential to solving the problems before you. Scholars include xenobiologists who study Polvan life, sociologists wise in the way of society, physicists experts in forces and energies, psychologists trained in madness and trauma, and lawyers navigating law and justice. Step 4. Your beliefs. After the War is about people with strongly held beliefs which drive their actions. That is why each character has 2 beliefs on their character sheet which represent issues they struggle with. These are ideas that the character is fairly confident in, but still seeking deeper understanding. They're also all subjective, deliberately controversial declarations. For example, I might have a belief that nationalism is a poison. I might be a Belter steward who is dismayed at how politicians use nationalist rhetoric to harm the vulnerable. Because it's a belief, I am looking for evidence that either supports or refutes that belief. If my Belter discovers a small ethnic minority group whose national identity brought them together, it would be evidence that contradicts my belief, and that grants me insight. I would simply benefit if I was faced with a nationalistic Martian whose racist ideas led to discrimination against that ethnic minority community. It's a subtle difference, but it's an important one. Now, some good examples of beliefs. Greed is good. Every life has a price. The children will save us. Violence is a tool. The ends justify the means. And the song loves us. Be sure to workshop your beliefs around the table and feel free to ask the GM for guidance. It's usually very helpful for the group if it contains multiple conflicting or contradictory beliefs, as these will tend to generate a great deal of insight during play. Once you've created those beliefs, each player should write them down, and also write down the beliefs of the other player characters on the top right portion of their character sheet. And speaking, as we now are, of your character sheet, the next step is your name and title. The last step of character creation is to name your characters and give them an evocative title. Isabella the Vast might be a good name for a belter physicist, lady who likes thinking about big problems, or it might be an ironic nickname for a diminutive marshal with an outsized personality. The book does have a name list, which includes the names commonly found for the various alien cultures, so if you're stuck for inspiration, don't worry, we've got you covered. Now, once you've done all that, it's time to build a home. Settlement creation is up next, and once you've created your characters, you need to create where they live. There are 6 standard settlements on Polvo to choose from, and as a group and to customize. Here are some examples. Fort Bly is a military outpost which stands watch over Polvo. Daedalus Station is a scientific research station harboring dark secrets. Port Thoth is a starport which is home to various criminal organizations. Warframe Yard is a boneyard settlement built to salvage fallen warships and repurpose them as houses and infrastructure. The Vermilion Exchange is a trading post originally founded by aliens, and Barleymow is a tight-knit farming village full of gossip. Now, let's zero in on that a little bit. Read through the introduction for your chosen settlement and examine the map as a group. Each standard settlement has 5 potential industries that could be present, and you need to choose 3 of them to be present in your community. When you select an industry, you are also deciding which associated NPC character you also want at the heart of your story. Let's do a for instance. Barleymow has the following industries and faces. Farming, led by Piotr Milnarski, a TERRAN agriculturalist. Fishing, led by Adaze the Fisher, a Martian sculptor. Ranching, led by Penitence the Permancer Shepherd. Textiles, led by Serafina the Weaver. And logging, led by Nazim the Stout, a former Martian cornerstone. If you select B as one of your industries, then many of the settlement's inhabitants work in that industry. So you have NPCs who will then be interacting with your players, as well as being a key figure in the community and representing that element of the community. To give you an example, Adaze the Fisher, the Martian sculptor. If your players interact with fishing regularly, they are going to interact with Adaze, and that's an opportunity for you to bring plot hooks up and through to them. Now, once you have your 3 industries and associated face characters chosen, it's time to answer the 4 questions at the bottom of your settlement sheet. Discuss potential answers to the questions as a group and help flesh out the history of your community. Each player character chooses one of these face characters to have a close relationship, by the way. Discuss the nature of these relationships and how they affect daily life before you proceed. Step 7. The Welcome Prelude. The game includes a procedure for starting a one-shot game, as well as how to begin a campaign and keep it going over in that particular section of the book. We'll talk about the campaign procedure here, but you can refer to the book if you want some more. The player character who has to live in the settlement for the longest describes what the settlement used to look like. They establish a relationship with a second face character. They welcome the next character to arrive and ask them questions. This welcoming process repeats until all of the player characters have arrived. Finally, the newest arrival to the settlement establishes a plot thread between an existing face character and a neighbouring settlement. That's really it. Welcome to Polvo. Your first game will explore a normal day in the characters' lives. The GM should establish simple 2-player scenes using leading questions to help explore the relationships between the player characters and get everybody more relaxed. Now, go do that. Don't worry, you'll be fine, and so will we. Pause this recording while you go do your welcome prelude. Leave about 15 minutes at the end of your session so you can finish learning how the game is played and be ready for session 2, and we'll see you back here in a little bit. Welcome back. Now that we have characters in a settlement, let's spend some time discussing how you actually play the game. After the War is based on a structure of dramatic scenes interspersed with personal interludes. Scenes are intense events which often involve multiple player characters in conflicts. Moments are the softer, private periods of introspection where one or two characters express their feelings. Scene framing. Establishing or framing a scene is an important process. Each scene has three components which are provided by three different people. The platform. This describes where and when the scene takes place. You can describe the loud, beer-soaked bar the evening after the previous scene, flash forward to 2 weeks in the future, or even have a flashback to the past. The GM normally establishes the platform and describes where everything takes place. After creating the platform, they choose a player to create the tilt. The tilt describes the destabilizing incident which forces the player characters to act. Perhaps a group of strange scavengers barge into the bar and seize the barkeep by the throat, or a child starts to cry outside. The tilt shows the first 30 seconds of the scene and makes it clear why we care. Then, they choose another player to create the question. The question describes what you are playing to find out, inspired by the tilt. This can be straightforward, such as asking why the scavengers are attacking the barkeep. It can also be far subtler, such as asking about which of the other patrons are taking advantage of the distraction. Answering the question informs you when the scene should end. And once the GM and two players have created these three elements, each of the players choose if they want their character in the scene. If they are in the scene, they are in actor mode, which allows them to roleplay and enter conflicts. If they are not in the scene, they are in audience mode instead, which is a supporting role where they also judge the actors. Next up, conflict. During a scene, you will often find a situation where two people will want different outcomes. The conflict rules exist to resolve these fictional disagreements. Conflicts can involve a player character versus the setting, GM, or between two player characters. You can't trigger a conflict unless you are in actor mode in the scene. When there is a conflict, each side declares what they want to get if they win. Each side then rolls dice, remember, our little six-sided buddies, adds up their totals and awards victory to the side with the largest score. Every player in a conflict begins with a single six-sided die. They then get an additional die for each of their 6 character traits, origin, war story, or profession, that applies. They also get an additional die for each conviction trait they are supporting. Let me give you an example. For instance, a TERRAN citizen in conflict with the GM concerning a hurricane striking their settlement. They would get 3 dice, 1 base die, 1 for being a TERRAN who knows about weather, and 1 for being a citizen who knows how to deal with emergencies. They would roll all 3 dice in that conflict. The GM will roll a number of dice based on the number of people being threatened. This is called the threat dice, and the extent of the memetic infection in play. After rolling the dice, players compare the dice before them with their strain tracks. They only add dice to their total if the individual die shows a number greater than the amount of strain they currently have. A character with 2 strain would ignore all 1s and 2s rolled on their 6-sided dice, for example. If a player is losing a conflict, they can choose to suffer 1 additional point of strain to re-roll as many of their dice as they can and keep the new result. So this is pretty nuanced. Whoever wins the conflict gets to narrate the outcome and must also suffer an additional point of strain as the price of victory. Conflicts are exhausting, and it's often better to navigate compromises. History may be written by the victors, folks, but history's footnotes, they're written by the survivors. And always read the footnotes. At the end of each scene, we will have insights and interludes. These will look at the characters to determine which of their beliefs have been supported or contradicted in play. The players in audience mode are in charge of judging the scene's actors. If a belief has been confronted in a scene, the player should mark a point of insight on their character sheet. Moments are special, shorter role-playing moments that have different triggers and mechanical effects. The types are moment of discovery, asking personal questions and healing strain, triggered by gaining enough insight. Moments of growth, finally accepting or refuting your beliefs to transform them into convictions, triggered by gaining enough insight. Moments of corruption, when the GM wins a conflict, they concede victory and instead alter your character's belief to align with the song or tormentor. Moments of grief, when someone's strain track fills, a player or non-player character is permanently removed from play and the player characters mourn. That's it. That's the basics. That's all you need to know to play After the War. You have characters with histories, a compelling setting, and you've introduced them all in play. You know how to create scenes, play through them, and share meaningful moments. Refer to the book if you want more detail, or come back here and listen to me again. But regardless, you're ready to play. Go. Have fun. My name is Alistair Stewart, and on behalf of myself and all at Genesis of Legend Publishing, we all hope you have a blast playing After the War.